At the end of chapter 29, or in chapter 29, David was told by the king of Gath, one of the leaders of the Philistines, that he needed to leave and go home. The other Philistine leaders didn't trust him, and thus David is on his way home as we begin chapter 30 with his 600 men to the city of Ziklag. Ziklag is the city that the king of Gath had given David, and now David is on his way back to that city. That's where we begin, literally. Vayhi bevo David va'anashav Ziklag bayom hashlishi, on the third day. So it took them a couple of days to get back to their home of Ziklag. We've already been told again that this was a city given to David and would remain for the kings of Judah for all time. The Amaleki pashtu el Negev el Ziklag vayaku et Ziklag vayisrafu ota ba'eshem. A very tragic thing happened. The Amalekites, and we know that David had previously attacked the Amalekites while he was under the, part of aligned, I should say, with the king of Gath. Now the Amalekites come out and they are raiding in the south of Israel, and they raid Ziklag and they burn the city down. Vayishbu et hanashim asher ba mikaton va'ad gadol lo hemitu ish. They took the women as captives, whether they were of nobility or whether they were, lower on the social scale. They didn't kill anybody. They carried them away. In verse 3, they come to the city and the city is burned. And their wives and sons and daughters had been taken captive. And David and the men with him, they break out in tears. Until they no longer, they've cried so much, they are it's like they have they're traumatized and they have no ability to cry anymore. What are they going to do? And in fact, we're told again, like it was told in the last verse, that everybody was taken, and thus Ushtei Neshei David Nishbu, and David's two wives were taken captive. Achinoam HaYizraelit, Vavigail Eshet Naval HaKarmali. Achinoam and Avigail. Interesting where it mentions Avigail here, even though she's David's wife, she's identified as the wife of Naval HaKarmali. Is there a little something that the text is trying to say to King David, that he married her right after Naval died, after the incident? Naval wanted, of course, to kill him and disrespected him, and Abigail came in chapter 25 and stopped David from his desire to kill all the people of all the men. But here it's strange that it still identifies her as the wife of Naval. Naval is dead. She's David's wife. And David was in great distress and great danger. Because the people said, we're going to stone David. The people were ready to stone David because they were embittered, they were upset, they were angry with David that all of their sons and daughters and their wives had been taken captive. If you remember back when we talked about David on the run, people start to join him. We have his family members, and we have these people who are embittered, these people who society and the kingdom of Israel under Shaul has not worked out for, and thus they joined David. So there were already people who were in dire straits or bad straits, and now now that things are going bad with David, that side of that anger and that bitterness is once again reflective, and they're ready to take their anger out on David. But David, he clings to God. And that's, of course, the great thing that we understand about David throughout his life, whether it be from the time of Goliath here, other places. He always clings to God. He turns to God when he has problems. That doesn't mean he won't make mistakes. Things won't go wrong, but that is always what he does. We're up to verse 7. Vayomer David el Evyatar ha-kohen ben Elimelech hagisha nali ha-ephod vayagesh Evyatar te'ephod el David. So David says to Evyatar, the one Kohen who survived from the destruction of the city of Nov on the hands of Doeg and Shaul, David says, bring the ephod so that I can consult with God. So Abiatar brings it forward. Vaishal David Badonai Lemor, Dof Achrei Hagdud Hazeh Hasigenu. David said, should I search after them, after these raiders? Will I be able to conquer them? Vayomer Lo, and he was told by God, Redof, Ki Haseg Tasig Vahatzel Tatzil. Go, because you will overtake them and you will rescue your people. So God answers in the affirmative. You should go, David. It will work out. So David and his 600 men, they set out and they come to a wadi that's called Besor, and there they stopped. But not everybody then went with David. Some people remained behind. They were tired, whatever it was. They were too emotionally fraught after their city. Their homes were burned down. Their wives, their kids were taken captive. And so some of them remained. 200 of them. Vayirdof David huva arba meot ish. And David and his 400 men go and David and 400 men go to chase after the Amalekites. And 200 men remained by this wadi, by this place Besor. And while they're on their way, they find an Egyptian person in the field, in the open. Sadeh here means, not in a city, in barren land or in wasteland or desert land. David, and he's brought to David. Kuhu mayim. They give him to eat. They give him to drink, which is, sort of they're finding this person. They have no relation to him. He's from the Egyptians. He could be in many ways an enemy of Bnei Israel, but they want to, maybe they're treating him nicely to get information, or they're treating him nicely because that's the way that you have to ask. They gave him pressed figs, smukim, and raisin cakes. And he sort of his strength returned. Because he hadn't eaten and drank for 3 days. David. So after they fed him and drank him and gave him to drink, and he's come back to his senses, David says to him, like, who are you? He said, I am an Egyptian boy. I was the slave of an Amalekite man. And my master abandoned me when I fell ill 3 days ago, right? Showing that the Amalekites don't care. This is a slave of his, and all he is a monetary amount of money. He's not a person. He's a possession. He's not able to help me, so I'll leave him here on the side of the road. Anafnu pashatnu negev hakreti va'alasher lihuda v'al kalev ve'et Ziklag sarafnu ve'esh. She said, we raided the Negev, places of Yehuda, places of Kalev. Remember, of course, Kalev ben Yefuneh, one of the 2 spies, who was given the first plot of land in Israel by Yehoshua, and that's in the southern Israel, parts of today Hebron and Kiryat Arba. So we also raided there, and we also burned down the town of Ziklag, which is, of course, David's town. Vayomer elav David, hatorideni el hagdud hazeh, vayomer hishavali ve'elohim miteni. David said to this young Egyptian, can you lead me down to where they are? And the young man said, swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into my master's hands, and I will lead you down. So I don't know exactly how the young Egyptian knew where his former master, yes, technically his master, and the other Amalekites went, but presumably in the direction that they came is the direction that they're going home. So David says, lead me in that direction. And he says, I'll do it as long as you do not return me to my master and you do not kill me. Vayoriduhu. And so the young Egyptian, he leads them down to Hinei, nitushim al pnei chol haaretz, and they were scattered all over the ground. Ochlim v'shotim v'chogagim b'chol hashval hagadol asher lakhu meretz v'shim meretz v'Yehuda. And they were, they're having a feast, eating and drinking and just having a good time because of all the spoils that they've taken from the lands of the Philistines, the land of Yehuda. They are in a great mood after winning all of these battles. It's not going to last long. On the next day, before dawn, David attacks, and he kills all of them. None of them escape, except 400 young men who mounted camels and got away. Some of them got on camels and were able to escape because their camels could run fast, but everybody else, David and his men, killed. So David rescued everything the Amalekites had taken, the people, the possessions, and he also rescued his 2 wives, the aforementioned Achinoam and Abigail. Nothing was missing from something big to something small. David managed to get everything back, women, the wives, the children, the possessions, everything. This was a great victory. David took all the herd, all the flocks, all the cattle, and drove it ahead of the other livestock, and it was declared, this is the spoil of David. So David returns, and the 200 men who were tired and couldn't continue. Remember, originally at 600 men, he left 2 of them at Nachal Besor. He made his attack with 400 men. So he's on his way home with the wives, the children, their possessions, and they reached the 200 men. They reached Nachal Besor. Okay. So these 200 men, they come out to greet the troops, to greet David, and David greeted them back. And all the men, and this is again, if you remember a term we've come back to, blial, without the yoke of God. The people who would Pilegesh Begiva, Chana says to Eli, don't make me a bat blial. Eli's sons, Chofni and Pinchas, who were terrible people, Bnei blial. It's been brought up multiple times as a pejorative word to describe people. And these undignified, these evil people, they turn to David and they say, we're in the middle of 22, Yan asher lo halchu imi, lo nitan lahem yishalal asher itzalnu, kim ish et ishtov yet banav, vayinhagu vayelechu. And the men, they said, those 200, those people, they didn't come and wait and fight in the battle. And since they didn't fight in the battle, don't give them any of the spoils. Yes, they could have their wives back, they could have their kids back, but they don't deserve any of the wealth. Vayomer David, lo tasu kein achi, echai, eit asher natan Adonai lanu vayishmor otanu vayten et hagdud haba elenu biyadein. He said, you can't do this, my brothers, because God has granted us, God has guarded us, God has delivered us into that delivered the Amalekites into our hands. And how could anybody agree with you? And it's going to be divided, both those who went to war and the people who remained in this place. It's going to be split. And this is significant in a number of ways. Number one, it's significant because David attributes the battle to God, right? As he says in verse 23, right? It is God who gave us this battle. God was the one who told us we can go. God is the one who gave us the battle. So really, we didn't really win the battle. God won the battle for us. So we're going to split it evenly. And a second thing that's significant as well, I think, is that if we think back to the war against Amalek by Shaul, the people there were saying to Shaul, oh, let's keep the sheep, the best ones, and we'll go and we'll offer sacrifices. And Shaul, he did not have the power or the strength to keep them in line. And that's, of course, part of the reason there, that the main reason that God came and said to Shaul through Shmuel, your kingdom is going to be taken away. David is not going to be intimidated. David is not going to be told by his soldiers what's going to happen. David is going to tell his soldiers what's going to happen. They might have been embittered. They were ready to stone him. David doesn't care. David knows he has God in his corner, and David will stand up, and David knows that he's going to be victorious, not necessarily because of him and his leadership skills, but because he knows he has God with him. And that's what he says, and it's going to be divided evenly. And thus in verse 25, we're told, in fact, from that day until whatever day this is, that the book is written, this was the law. There are those who go into the battle, and there are others who support the troops in other ways, watching on the home front, cooking the food, whatever it is, and the spoils are split. When David reached Ziklag, he sent some of the spoils also to the elders of Yehuda. If you remember, the elders of Yehuda was also attacked in these battles by the Amalekites. And to his friends, he said, this is a present from our spoils from the enemies of the Lord. David making connections back in with the people of Yehuda, right? It's thought that he's aligned with the Plishti here, but he's showing in different places that he is not so. And it tells us where he sent it. Lasher b'Beit El, Lasher b'Mot Negev, Lasher b'Yatar, Lasher b'Aroer, Lasher Bisfamot, Lasher b'Eshtoma, Lasher b'Rachal, Lasher b'Area Yachmeli, Lasher b'Area Kili, Lasher b'Chorma, Lasher b'Bor Ashan, Lasher b'Atach, Lasher b'Chevron, L'chol Makomot Asher Talech Sham David Huvan Hashem. David sent this to all the places all over Yehuda, to all the places that he, his men roamed, that he, his men defeated enemies of Israel, that he and his men were able in the past and on this day to take booty, to take loot. He shared it with his people. And so we see in this chapter the significance of the leadership of David. We see two very, very strong and important things. One, David, unlike Shaul, can control his troops. They will not control him. He will control them. We've seen this a couple of times where in smaller places where his soldiers said to him, today's the day, you can kill your enemy Saul, the one who wants to kill you. And David said, I won't do that. David demonstrated his leadership and that he's in charge, but that's, one or two people who said, go and kill him. Here, they're ready to kill him. They are not ready to share the loot from the city. And David says, no, I'm the one in charge. And a second thing that it shows, and that's a contrast again to the leadership of Shaul, who was not able to do that. Second thing is, of course, he's showing that God is with him. God is the one who gave us victory. When we are victorious as members of Bnei Yisrael, it is because of God. It is not because of us. And thus, everything is going to be split amongst God's people. It's not going to be taken. And then the last thing is, of course, we see David's victory here, and we already know about Shaul's imminent, I should say, imminent maybe as well, imminent death. Shaul is on his way to die. Shaul has fallen off the Gog, the roof. He's on his way down. And David, we see, despite the setbacks, despite him having to run away, despite Shaul wanting to kill him, despite all of that, he's got his wives. He has people behind him, people who will listen to him. He's victorious in battle. He's defeating the Amalekites. He's tricking the Plishtim. He is the one who is rising. So David on his way up. And unfortunately, we know it's going to come soon. Shaul on the way down.